Hello everyone and welcome back to another Train Sim World 2 news video. This one is about creating passengers from rush hour. So, find out more about how we have updated our passengers for rush hour coming this summer. We sat down with senior producer Matt Pedleston and art director Derek Siddle to find out more about what changes have been made to our passengers and what you can look forward to this summer. Why are passengers important to Train Sim World 2? And that's what Derek has to say. They are important because they are the cargo. Why do we have trains? To move people around. Ultimately, if we didn't have people, we would be driving from A to B for no reason. For Train Sim World 2, the other reason is, of course, to bring life and to make it feel like you are part of a living, breathing world and not just a dead environment. We want it to feel like you were going from one bustling place to another. How have we approached recreating the feel of a rush hour from a passenger point of view? And Matt says, we wanted to go through the passenger technology, what we had previously, and give it an overhaul. There's a lot of things we wanted to update. We took a look at the number of passengers, and consistent feedback we get, particularly on console, is that there just aren't enough passengers. We plan to get that number up, but we can't just dial the number up as we please because that would severely impact the frame rate, especially last gen. We have spent a lot of time reworking how passengers work, which involves going into depths of Unreal, understanding how it all works, optimizing it so it's faster for what we are trying to do. Having improved the optimization, that's when we can dial the numbers up. We have set different values for every platform so that we can try and get the most out of every machine without holding one back because of the other. And then this is what Derek has to say. The key stations at either end of the route, the ones with the concourse like Victoria or Brighton, they don't want large numbers of people crowding the platforms waiting for the trains. This is part of the reason why they won't release the platform number until the train is ready to go and it's safe to allow a large number of people on the platforms. Generally, they won't all wait on the platform for the train. What a lot of people do is stand in the waiting area, look at the boards, and when that information comes up saying boarding at platform 8, for example, then everyone will start walking through the gates simultaneously and heading for the train. We're trying to recreate some of those behaviours. We've tried to use a number of the passengers that we can use without creating performance issues in a sensible way to make it look as full as possible and not waste valuable characters in places where they won't be noticed. And then Matt says, we also looked at the behaviours of passengers when they spawn in, how long it takes to get to the other platform. On some routes you find you come into a platform and it's empty, and when you leave it's still empty. What happens is, had you stayed around the platform for another 30 seconds, the passengers would have started arriving. This is because they start spawning at some distant location and were walking down the corridors to get to the platform, which isn't very good. The idea was to create a sense of life so that if you're walking down the platform you wouldn't just see passengers popping into existence, but this doesn't help if you're only at a station for 20 seconds. In rush hour we have pre-populated the platforms with passengers, so when you turn up they should already be there waiting. We've really thought about how we set our volumes on the platforms the passengers use to cluster together in almost cubes. We have changed it now so they are more spread out and it feels more natural. Will there be any changes to how passengers move? And Matt says the passengers used to sort of float up the stairs in Navmesh. The ramp is just diagonal. Even it has steps in reality, they will just go walking animation while floating. We have also adjusted some parameters, so that means passengers on platforms should now walk in a more natural fashion rather than in the exact shortest path line in their target point. We have been able to switch them to step walking animation now. The difference is noticeable when you look at the heads. Before you would see a row of heads like they were on an escalator, whereas as now the heads bob up as they go up the stairs. It's subtle, but it makes a big difference on how it looks. Will there be a notable difference between the regular night time of day and peak time of a day? And then Matt says that has actually always been there, but it's just difficult to see because of the lower volumes of passengers. If you are on console and you had a limit of 20, the difference between times of day is barely noticeable, particularly if you spread the passengers out across multiple platforms. By increasing the numbers, the difference between the peak and off-peak does become more readily apparent. Each of the stations has its own spawn density curves. On one rush hour might mean there are now 10 people on the platform, and on another platform it might mean 200 people spawn. The system has quite a lot of flexibility and we are finally able to leverage it because we can get the raw number limits much higher. We are also able to put more passengers on the trains themselves, which means you will see a bigger impact when a train pulls into the station and a sea of people get off. What has been done to change the visual appearance of passengers? And then Derek says, there are a number of things that we've done. One of the first things is add a height factor. The skeleton can be 5% bigger or 5% smaller, so we don't have a flat line of heads all the same height. The difference is very subtle, but this avoids some really strange proportions. We have added palletization to the outfits of the existing characters. That means, for example, in the past, if someone was wearing a white shirt, it would always remain a white shirt. What we have done now is that shirt can become any colour, and if they are wearing a tie, that can change colour too. This can create some interesting combinations. As you can imagine, we have had some fun with that, and as you can see by some of the screenshots. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a man with a pink coat on, then black trousers. Interesting. One of the issues we are trying to combat is that if you've seen this twin person many times, there's a random hairstyle they will wear, but also what clothes they'll be wearing. Now, if you do see someone in the same style clothes, they'll at least be a different colour. We have also introduced another layer which includes a pattern. This means if someone was wearing a pink shirt previously, they could now be wearing a pink checkered shirt or a pinstripe shirt. This one outfit now has many different colours with many different patterns. We are also adding extra outfits to the scene. We have included 4 masculine outfits and 4 feminine outfits, 2 for lower temperatures and 2 for warmer temperatures. Below a certain temperature, roughly 12 degrees, they'll all be wearing their winter outfits. Between 12 and 18 they'll have a mix, and above 18 they will have close to warmer weather, so that's really, really good, that is. And obviously you can see the screenshots on there. What else can players look forward to with the new passengers? And Derek says, we're trying to set up little scenes where we will populate platforms with all of the cool diagrams. Essentially, it's a small group of people that will be on the platform, that will always be on the platform, but won't move. The train, so to speak up, will never turn up. We just want to add more of these platforms to fill out stations a bit more of interesting scenes of people or inanimate objects. And then Matt says, we can spawn and despawn these dioramas, but never in front of a player. If you're going up and down London Brighton, for example, when you get to Gatwick on your southbound journey, you might see a combination of these dioramas, and then when you come back at a different time of the day, they might not be there anymore. If the weather changes during this time, you could return to find them wearing different clothing. If the weather changes during this time, does that dynamic weather, a little hint at that there? This opens a lot of potential for what we can do for Rush Hour. They will start by being very simple. The dioramas are created by using more traditional animation and character handling. Creating a scene with baggage and someone sitting down reading a newspaper versus trying to create a system where someone can bring baggage onto the platform, sit down and pull up a newspaper, which would be a nightmare. This allows us to be a lot more creative with what happens on platforms using this system. And then Derek says that we have a lot of ideas for interesting ways we can do these scenes. But yeah, obviously that was the passenger thing there. And obviously, in a couple of days, Epic Games, the TSW2 is going to be free on it, so we should be able to check the new passengers out on there, I believe, which will be cool. So we'll be streaming that from the PC. But yeah, obviously do comment what you think below. Obviously, you will find the link in the description to the Discord server, to the PayPal, and to the merch store if you do want to help support the channel. But that's going to be it from me. Thanks all for coming in, and I hopefully will see you next time. See you all. Take care. Bye, guys.